All right, good afternoon.
Hi. How are you?
Good, how are you? How was your long weekend?
Wonderful. It was really relaxing.
I saw that you went to the beach.
Yes, I went to the beach. I got to go to Connecticut, visit my friends.
That's excellent.
It was good.
Perfect weekend for the beach.
Yes, it was like 85 and sunny, so it was really nice.
Quite jealous. Being a wedding is not as relaxing as going to the beach.
I know,
It was
but your
fun.
pictures looked beautiful.
Well, anytime you're going to pay for hair and makeup, so I've got to take every picture possible.
Exactly.
Beach would have been more relaxing. Glad you got to do that. Okay, so we're going to talk about your lesson from last week.
Okay.
And I want to start off by saying your growth in terms of using questioning and discussion techniques is phenomenal. Not only are you going to the level of proficient where you're generating questions for the class, you're having them generate questions for themselves and for each other. Before, students were reading the interview for Murakami.
Yes, yeah.
They developed a question they would ask him, and they shared those out. And then during the reading of that interview, you narrated for students who were asking questions in the margin. And I observed 3 students who were doing that, and I'm sure there were more because after you narrated for it. So that is amazing. They really are taking on that PD initiative and taking it beyond where I could have even imagined. So keep that up. And then to start talking about like the second part of the lesson when they were in seminar, your students were in, did you hear it laughing next door?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, your students were in seminar for the second half of the lesson, which was great. You had a devoted amount of time for reading, and then students went into discussion. I noticed that students were directing their answers to you, and even when they were verbally agreeing or disagreeing with each other, they were still kind of, they were looking at you. Like Angelica said, I agree with Uchenna, but she was looking at you and kind of did a point at Uchenna instead of like looking at him and talking to him. So it's really thinking about those speaking and listening standards while you were giving them opportunities to explore, like to speak and listen to one another. It's kind of like the body language component of speaking and listening. So thinking about that as like a key lever to their own growth as they communicate with one another.
That's a good point.
So what do you think you could do to help them do that more?
Well, I think in that seminar and in that class in particular, I've gotten in the habit of like sitting with them in the seminar circle, and so I think by me becoming a part of the seminar circle, it like physically makes me right there in the middle of it. I think if I were to take myself out of that space and like put myself up on the doc cam, like where I can mind map it that way, I can kind of like physically step out of the circle, and then that way like they're actually more like forced to look at one another. Another thing that I've tried to do in the past I can definitely work on doing even more so with this group is when someone starts to say that frame, so for example like I agree with Uchenna, like I can actually inject and say like, why don't you tell him? And so then that way like Angelica can turn and say like, I agree with you because of X, Y, and Z. So really trying to like take the like the naming of students out and really pushing it more into like a natural conversation. I think those are 2 things that would probably help, because I agree with you, it's like they kind of like look at me to like check or validate their responses, and they don't need to be doing that. So
great. Okay, so I've written down that you're going to physically maybe move out of the circle to a new location and you're going to name that they need to have a more natural conversation, and that when they start talking to each other to remind them to look at each other.
Yeah.
Those are like the 3 things. All right, awesome. When can I come and see that happening?
Let's see, we'll be having a seminar next week, so you can have a follow-up conversation. You can see that, kind of dig into how they'll have a discussion in regards to their research papers and their independent projects.
Fantastic. Okay, I'm excited to see how they continue to learn how to speak to each other without looking at you.
Awesome.
Thanks so much.
Cool.
That was 5 minutes. It was under 5 minutes.